unfortunately, in the last 6 months or so, you would have seen a post of layoffs all across the world. And it hurts when you see such a strategic function have to deal with layoffs. And when I look at it, one of the things that really gets me is how do we make sure that this function stays strategic and does not lose its seat at the table. Good news is, history teaches us, and we have very recent history to look at, right? So if you remember COVID, 3 years ago, around this time, we were dealing with a point where there were absolutely a hiring freeze. So we were dealing with hiring slowdowns, right? And just 6 months later, things fundamentally changed. We went from a hiring freeze to a hiring craze. We went from layoffs in talent acquisition to ramp-ups. We also dealt with attrition going north, joining ratios dipping south, and guess what? We went from hire at low cost to hire at any goddamn cost, right? But this happens in every recession, correct? So the question is, what is different about this time? So if you think about it, the first thing that's changed is that in the last recession, talent acquisition delivered 3x numbers. They were feted. But this time around, that's become table stakes. The other thing that's changed, I talked to a lot of TA leaders, and one of the things they tell me is that pricing, portals have increased pricing by 4x, 6x. If you look at your social and all other data sources, most of them are monopolies. How then are you going to deal with cost pressures, especially since we know hiring is going to get crazy? The other thing, right? Candidates have tasted blood, haven't they? You know they're all sitting tight. You know attrition is trending low at this point for a reason. The moment hiring's back up, people are going to start jumping on the hiring bandwagon. We're going to have crazy number of offers. So we know every one of those constraints that we dealt with is going to come back. So then, now that we understand the constraints, let me talk to you about a couple of very interesting stories. The first story is a story I'm going to tell you of May 2020, bang in the start of the pandemic. And I'm going to take you into the cockpit where I was party to a call with the Mindtree leadership, the TA leadership and the CXO group. And they were looking to build a sourcing engine on employee referrals. And I asked Kishore, right? I said, Kishore, there is a hiring freeze. Like, it's a very stupid question to ask. But why are you investing now? Right? Why are you investing on building a sourcing engine on referrals? And he said 3 things that stayed with me. He said, Sudarshan, this is temporary. Right? We know hiring is going to come back. I want to build an engine now, so I'm ready. Second thing he said, see, this is the best time for me to create a buzz internally and to have my employees help their friends and bring talent to us. And the third thing that he said stayed with me very deeply. He said, all my sources, portals, vendors, social media, every one of them today presents candidates to multiple companies. Whereas referrals gives me access to a pool that's mine and mine alone. That's pretty powerful. Happy to share, they went from 16 joiners a month to 300 joiners a month in the next 12 months when hiring got crazy through this channel. They won the Brandon Hall Award, which is the Oscars in HR. They won gold for this program. And not just that, LTI won that for the year before for a similar strategy. Quest delivered 12x improvement in joiners. And all of these companies today are benefiting from having invested in building a sourcing engine on referrals. And they do so with 12 to 20% better joining ratios. They do so with a reduced cost per hire. And you know what? A 5 days better tag. So actually, we ran a survey this time. So we said, how is TA convincing the org? And you should go follow Ripple Hire on LinkedIn. We ran a benchmarking study of 500 TA folks. And we asked them, and you'll get insights on what they feel about this channel. And you know what was special in that is they said, how are you convincing TA this year? How are you convincing the org this year to invest? So the takeaway was, CFOs love the fact that this is budget neutral. CHROs love the fact that this is employee engagement married to hiring. So we are actually killing two birds with one stone. Business loves the fact that their employees are giving them talent and that the joining ratios are great. So less effort on interviews, better collaboration. And lastly, employees love the fact that, they can help their friends in these uncertain times. So a few interesting things that are takeaways, right? So you can go and think about this. Gone are the days when employee referrals are done with one email sent out to the entire org. Like that's 1990s or early 2000s. If you're sending one email to everybody, you're losing a big opportunity. Think about this. If we build communities internally, and I can send out a Salesforce job to a Salesforce developer, a digital marketing job to a digital marketing person in the org, they are already part of several WhatsApp groups. What you get is intelligent folks in those groups who are highly relevant applying, getting you access to a quality pool, and building a brand on WhatsApp where none of your competition today exists. So the beauty is you actually reach people where they are on their phones. The second thing, and I think this is something all orgs should implement, your employee referral channel gives talent acquisition the window to talk to the entire org. And if you think about it, the only time, so I know there are HR folks in the audience here, and I know everybody thinks HR is thankless. At least employees reach out to you and talk to you. The only time an employee reaches out or anybody in the org reaches out to talent acquisition is when there is an escalation on fraud. And the TA folks are out scampering, figuring out what the hell happened, who hired them, what happened. So the reality is if you can launch an asset and build out the newsletter, you have the ability or a window to recognize TA, to talk about initiatives, to talk about improvements, to create contests between different business lines and have them deliver faster hires and to talk to that. And if you can get your CXO buy-in to send that out, you put yourself front and center. Lastly, right, instead of paying people cash, the fact that a 2,700 rupee music concert can get you far more contributions to referrals than a 5,000 rupee cash reward is insanely powerful, right? Not just that, I mean, there are opportunities to marry what you're doing on CSR with how you recognize people for referrals, meaning that you can do a low-cost way of building a brand through employee advocacy. Now I'm going to switch to the second story, and this story is a story where, while referrals is the bat suit, this is about the Batmobile. Back in 2020, this was a conversation with Himanshu Mishra. He was heading talent acquisition and several other functions for Axis Bank. And Himanshu was looking to implement an ATS. And one of the things he said to me was that I am sick and tired of going to conferences and hearing trends after trends and making short-term impact. What I really want to do is focus and not worry about things that will keep changing. Because you know what, there are a lot of trends, but the reality is I want to focus on less marketing, more value, and I want to focus on delivering and improving things that don't change. What does that mean? He said, I don't want to put shiny taps when my plumbing is corroded. I want to change my plumbing. I want to change the engine on which my talent acquisition runs. The second thing, changing things that matter and that do not change means fundamentally improving joiners per recruiter, improving your time to fill, improving your cost per hire. And if you look at it, right, these are things that never change. In this conference, you would have heard a bunch of trends, including ChatGPT. But unless any of those trends impact the core metrics that business cares for and that matters for talent acquisition, they are just trends, right? But to deliver and improve trends, you need data, right? And if you look at how the behavior is on the ground, everybody is using their system just to issue offers. Isn't that the reality? Everything happens on Excel. Then how the hell can you improve, identify bottlenecks unless you really know what the data is? And interestingly, if you look at the power of data-driven recruiting, you can actually have conversations and handle escalations with business with so much confidence when you have data to back your story up versus fighting over email chains and email threads. But people don't operate in Excel because they want to. It's because the systems that are thrown at them are so painful that they don't want, right? So, have you ever seen any recruiter talk about how difficult it is to get on Instagram? So the point is, if you can enable consumer-grade user experience, there is absolutely every reason that people will adopt this. The other thing I think about being a superhero is not only can you give people jobs, you can actually help save jobs. The best part about recruitment, and I know this is a massive pain, is the fact that you have the problem of recruitment frauds. The fact that you can solve for frauds using a good system means that you can protect your CXO jobs. You can go at a board level and have that seat and talk about how you're solving and keeping people safe in leadership, and they love this. Lastly, I remember, people used to say it is impossible to deliver a good candidate experience in a volume market, right? You can do this in the US, you can do it in India where the funnels are low. So we took on this channel, and I'm happy to share that the lowest candidate experience on our platform is 4.515, which means consistently today companies are delivering 90th percentile and above candidate experience. And how are they doing this? If you eliminate some of the mundane things that people have to do, recruiters have a natural knack of talking to people, understanding motivations, right? Having a gut feel on who's rightly driven by what. And that's where they focus on the experience and really change it. Because if you have to deliver a great candidate experience, you absolutely need to make sure that all your bandwidth, right, is focused on making sure that the interviewers are, doing the right job, the hiring manager has things right, and you know what? You're giving that premium experience to a candidate because you're not wasting time on anything else. I know, as one of the largest TA technology companies today, we have a lot to thank this fraternity for. The TA fraternity is the reason we are here, and I know firsthand how much you've benefited from the giving nature of this community. But one thing I definitely have as an ask is, let's please stand up for ourselves. Let's make sure that this hiring freezes, these layoffs don't keep occurring, and we really invest the time in making sure that we are recession proof. And for us to do that, right, as a sentiment and to change, there is no better time than using this recession so that the next time there is a recession, and there will be, that's the nature of the world. You know what? The last person that they look at is your hiring engine and getting rid of folks in the talent, people, and talent acquisition teams. So my sincere request, let's use this downtime, and we have downtimes in our orgs to some degree right now. Let's use this to really fix our foundation. Let's use this to transform how our function is looked at within the org. Thank you so much for your listening today. You can reach me on LinkedIn. You can follow me on Ripple Hire, follow Ripple Hire as well on LinkedIn. And we have a booth here. It's right by as you exit. Please come by. I'm happy to take any questions and have a chat on how we can elevate this function together. Thank you.